Welcome to Decision Space, the only show to take place right here in the space between the turns in your favorite games. I'm Jake Friedman,
I'm Pete Wissinger.
and this is the podcast about decisions in games.
And today, Jake and I are going to fill you in on some of the games we played at Geekway to the West this past week. It was an amazing time. We had a lot of listeners to the show and members of our Discord community come play games with us, and we played a lot of games. And so we're really excited to tell you about some of those games. Some of them are kind of like new hotness, but of course, knowing Decision Space, mostly we just played old games that like absolutely still slap.
We just had to get a couple new games in for the clickbait, and then we could play what we actually wanted to. It's going to be a really fun conversation. I can't wait to have with you. Before we get into that, a couple things for show business. First, speaking of Geekway, I did promise everyone going into our play of El Grande with the King and Intrigue expansion that I would give the winner of the game a shout out on this show. So congratulations, Darren. You earned it. And I didn't say this, but I do think it's fair to give second place a shout out to because it was just like so close. So congratulations to me for second place. I
Oh my
also did
gosh.
pretty good. Uh,
Well, congratulations to both players.
Thank you.
I
Thank
missed
you.
out on yet another El Grande play. I couldn't believe when I walked in and that's what you guys were playing. I was like, "What the hell?" Like,
It's just it was that was like most of the con, right? It's just like FOMO, but we also had a great time, and we'll get into a lot of those plays. The other piece of show notes or show business is we always want to say thank you to our new patrons and welcome them the first week they join supporting our Patreon. So this week, a big thank you to Evan for choosing to support our Patreon. Evan gets to watch this show a week early. Whenever we record it, we put it up, and also gets access to our pre-show and sometimes post-show behind the scenes that we'll record as well. So thank you so much, Evan. It truly means a ton to us, and thanks to all our other patrons as well. We also like to read reviews when we get them for the show. So we got a very kind, long review that we want to,
this
to
one's
indulge
long.
in reading now. So I'll throw that to you, Pete.
And I might this might be slightly edited down just for sake of time, but this is a 5-star review from Gallic Cast. It's titled "Who Needs a Golden Geek?" And it's like a 6-paragraph review, so we're just going to kind of get into some of the highlights here. First, a bit of context. I've been playing a wide range of board games since childhood, nearly 50 years. For the last 10 years or so, I've tended to gravitate towards heavier games that focus on intense interaction and conflict. I'm especially fond of asymmetric war games. I also have a particular fondness for old school Euro games that became popular 20 to 30 years ago. Sounds like this person knows what's up. Anyway, it says that they despise Cult of the New. And then they say, with that grumpy rant as a backdrop, Decision Space feels almost otherworldly to a cranky old gamer like me. There's simply nothing out there quite like it. It seems to have come from an alternate universe where the magic and wonder of gaming was never stealthily snuffed out by unbridled consumerism and the insufferable noise of social media. Its thoughtful exploration of what truly makes gaming experience meaningful is utterly unmatched. It playfully stands alone, and it is wonderful. And it says much of modern gaming commentary exists in its own unfortunate donkey space, a term that they first learned of on Decision Space. Would-be influencers survey the landscape of available podcasts and jockey for advantage with suboptimal commentary about pre-release copies of Kickstarter hype. Meanwhile, Jake, Brendan, Paul, and Pete are thoughtfully talking about Raw and Medina. Decision Space is the best podcast there is. If I had the power to not only give a Golden Geek, I would give them a Golden Globe. Sadly, I have limited power, and so I'm left to write this rambling review. 5 stars just didn't feel like enough. Then it says, quick footnote. Here's the real hot take. The episode after the Golden Geek was announced, they had an interview with Cole Worley that left me absolutely breathless. That beats a Golden Geek award any day in my book. Thank you, Gallic Cast, for that absolutely overly generous, I would say, review of this podcast.
But incredibly kind, 10-star review of that review from me.
I'm going to give them an
We really
Oscar.
appreciate
They
it.
gave us a Golden Globe. I'm giving them an Oscar for that review.
They're, what is it?
The EGOT. They're going to EGOT.
They're EGOT. They get EGOT. Congratulations.
All right, let's talk Geekway.
So, as just a very quick, let's ground our listeners in what Geekway to the West is. So this is a annual convention that takes place in St. Charles, Missouri. So that's just across the river from St. Louis at a big hotel convention center space. I think they capped the attendance around like 2,200 people. So it's much 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 smaller than your Gen Cons or Origins Game Fair, but still that ends up being like 3-4 ballrooms worth of board game enthusiasts playing games for 4 days.
Yeah, it looks like I just looked it up and it looks like around 3,500 attendees.
Yeah, so I
So
just
feels,
underestimated us by a smidge.
I'm saying it feels huge for a St. Louis convention, but like, of course, tiny compared to some of the big conventions in the country. But of course, the thing that makes this different is that like while there is a vendor hall with like maybe 20 or so vendors, it's like a tiny amount of what this convention is. This is closer to conventions where you go to play games, not buy games. Like I think some of the bigger ones like this are like the BGG conventions or the Dice Tower conventions. So there is a small hall, but kind of the main attraction here is that there's just ballrooms with huge tables that are there just for open gaming. There's also a library of old games you can check out. And then what's very popular is there's a play and win library where every time you check out a game, you're entered into a raffle to win a copy of the game that you checked out. And that's where a lot of sort of like hot new games are kind of available for convention goers to check out.
Yeah, and I think the library is really good too. And if it sounds like we're fans of this podcast, or sorry, fans
I'm a
of this
fan. I'm a fan
convention
of this
on the
podcast.
podcast, we absolutely are. We're in no way affiliated with Geekway, except for the fact that we have had sort of like our own decision space convention within the convention, just like using the infrastructure of Geekway to get as many decision space listeners as possible to come hang out and just play games all together. And that's really all I did for those the extent of the convention is just play games with decision space folks and had an awesome time. So, we don't get anything if y'all choose to go to Geekway next year, except for that we would get to enjoy your lovely company and play games with you. So we absolutely encourage it.
Yeah, it's sort of the de facto convention for the podcast since 3/4 of the hosts are St. Louis locals. And I wish I had like put the names of everyone who came from our decision space community because I would love to have just read out, but I would leave somebody out. We had a lot of people. I think there were times where we had like 4 full tables of people playing games, just decision space people. And I want to give like a big shout out to members of our community for just like being so welcoming to new people because I think there was no one just sitting around wishing they were playing a game that I noticed, right? Like people were pulling people into games the whole time. People were super willing and excited to teach games. It seemed like there was no kind of awkward downtime. Everyone was there to just game to the max the entire time. And it was like an incredible experience to have all these people come and share this.
Yeah, shout out to all of us because one thing that I think we did such a better job this year of, at least to my eyes, it felt like we almost eliminated entirely the awkward moments of just like standing next to the wall of games where people are like sitting around like, oh, what do we play? Okay, we could do 4 and 3, or we could do a big game. It felt like everyone was just so excited to be gaming with each other. We just filled games instantly, and yeah, I just felt like there was hardly any downtime at all of playing the game of what should we play next, which was truly incredible. And I think that's just a credit to everyone there who is, it was genuinely just so fun. And also just be like the fact that, yes, a lot of people were meeting for the first time, but it didn't feel that way because, we've connected on the Discord, and even people who are just new to the Discord or new to the show that just wanted to get in touch because they were going to be there. It's like we're into the same hobby. We're into the same kind of stuff, thinking about games, playing games. So it was just great to game with literally every single person. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who made it out this year. Yeah, like Pete, not going to name names, but there's just some incredibly kind gestures. Like somebody, I will say, Alan was just like, we were calling him the Energizer Bunny, but at one point he was like, "I'm gonna make a coffee run. It's anybody want coffee?" And he just like came back up with like 8 coffees, like loose in his arms. Like what a legend!
What's funny is that I think played one game with you and 0 games with Paul. Like I was really maximizing playing games. I felt like with people from out of town. And so that was really awesome to like see these people who I really wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to hang out with.
Yeah, so super fun. And if you're listening, thinking like, "Dang, that sounds really cool," consider Geekway next year. And we'd love to meet you and play with you and share kind of like the fun experience that is gaming all together as the decision space cohort inside of Geekway.
All right, Jake. So you suggested that we start our kind of, and this is again, Jake and I did an episode similar to this after we spent a weekend at Gamers Ranch. It is indulgent for us as a podcast to do what other podcasts do every week, which is just list a bunch of games that we played and chat about the games. Normally, we're like a deep dive, not sort of like a quick hits kind of podcast. Um, but you said before we jump into we've kind of made like lists of like superlatives. Do you know how many different games you played at the convention, Jake?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I ended up playing. My schedule was like I showed up around like 9:30 and gamed until about 8 or 9. I kind of cut out a little bit early just to so I could just play the whole time and then do dinner at home. I don't know if
Sure.
anybody listening has this, but like I cannot fall asleep for like at least 2 hours after I finish playing games. So gaming until midnight, as I've done in the past, driving the 30 minutes home and then laying in bed for 2 hours is like a pretty rough. So I was disciplined this year and that worked out well for me. So anyway, in so I did that for the 3 days. Didn't make it back out on Sunday just because of some family stuff, but I think I probably averaged about 10 games a day, and I don't think I had any repeats. So
my
30?
total was my total was 22 games, but some of them were like very long. Um, so and I missed a morning and went out to a dinner one night. But yeah, it's funny because like I am someone who I'm like a morning person who gets sleepy at night. But if I'm playing a game I'm excited about, I basically have bottomless amounts of energy. Like like it's essentially like I'm like on drugs or something. Like I didn't go as late this year as I did last year at Geekway. I think my latest night was like one night. But there were some people who I think if people had been wanting to stay up all night, there were people there who were ready to do it.
It is crazy how it just feels like in some way gaming like in that space can like sustain you in a way that like food normally is needed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's but yeah. I think Bill from our Discord was also there, which was awesome to meet Bill. He's been a co-host on some of these episodes over the years, but he was said, he was made a comment that his wife was talking to some friends of theirs after he got back. It was like, yeah, they just gamed for 4 days straight. They barely come up for air.
That's true. It's true. All right, Jake. So you said we should, before we get to our superlatives, talk about what was our theme for the convention. Like if you were like looking back
Yes.
and sort of saying, what was this convention about for you?
Yeah.
So why don't you start? What
Okay.
was Geekway 2026 for Jake?
The theme was for me, and I think for kind of everybody there, was that like, man, I really nailed it with my top 10 this year. Because so many games, I put some like kind of, the games on my top 10 list. A lot of people chime in like, wow, very unique top 10s. And sometimes I do that. I'm like, are these games actually as good as I think they are? But I end up just by happenstance playing a ton of games that I put on my top 10. And some of the other two other games were played by people and enjoyed that I wasn't even a part of. So it's like people were playing those games like crazy. I think the only two games on my top 10 that weren't played by anybody in the Decision Space meetup was Medina, that nobody had a copy of, or certainly we would have been playing, and Isle of Skye, which I had in my bag, but it didn't come out. But we played, El Grande, Tikal, Bus, Santiago, Fives,
Nikosu dice.
Nikosu Dice. I can't remember if I put Renature on there, but like we played them all. It was nuts, and
Nice.
we had an awesome time teaching them to people. So I felt very, validated my own personal preferences, but also it's just so fun to share those games with people. Like, some people came over like, we'd love to play T-Call with you. I'm like, all right, twist my arm. And it was just
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
that's awesome. I think I played 4 games out of my top 10 at the convention. And I kept like being on the edge of getting Root to the table, but it didn't happen, but that's fine. I think my theme this year was sort of like experiential games. Like it was games that deliver big with like the right group in the right setting. I think I really kind of like maximized having the people there to play games with, maybe games that are kind of hard to get to the table, perhaps. And so it was definitely sort of like the big experience game convention for me rather than really any kind of like thinky strategy convention for me. And that's exactly where I want to be. So it was killer.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait. And I know we'll talk about some of those games too, but even though we didn't play in a ton together, it was fun just to be on the periphery of some of those games and just like
Oh,
hearing.
I could be heard just about anywhere in that room. But anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So our first superlative we're going to talk about is we're going to
Mhm.
say, what was the new hotness you played? Because for some of you listeners, you clicked on this episode because these games were in the title of the episode.
Yeah.
So
So the superlative is newest games by
hottest game
release
you
date.
played. Yes, exactly. Most recently in the BGG hotness list.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, do you want me to go first?
yeah, go for
So
it.
I'll jump in. I got the chance to play Feya's Swamp, a 2025 release designed by Helga and Anselm Ostertag. And this is a game that re-implements an OG game by the name of Kaivai that I am unfamiliar with, haven't played or anything like that. Um, but that was, the design pedigree. These are the folks that I believe also did, you know, Terra Mystica and some like incredibly classic game, Age of Innovation, the one of those games that I prefer. Um, was enough to get me in the door to try it. So we checked it out from the play and win and got it to the table. I should say at the top, it was a little bit of a weird play for me because I had like one work call I had to do in the middle of the day. And I had like a hard stop. So as we were getting to the teach, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this in time. Like maybe I should back out. So we did just like play pretty quick.
Okay.
Mistakes were made. And in the back of my head, I was feeling like a little bit of a crunch. That just made it less optimal. Um, but what this game is it's a sort of a pick up and deliver game, I would
Okay.
say, where the main core loop of the game is you're moving across this hex grid with boats, and you want to land on certain spaces that are depicted with fish where you can fish and pick up um, fish. And then you want to move your boats to these islands, and then you can deliver the fish to the island. And it's really interesting because if you can deliver to your own island, or you can deliver to your opponent's islands. And if you deliver to your own island, that's good because later you can do this celebration action where you're like basically consume all the fish on an island for points. But it's also good to deliver on your opponent's islands because then you get money from the bank, which is like crucially needed um, for various actions in the game. So it's an interesting puzzle there. But then you're giving them fish where they can earn points. Um, and it has this really interesting kind of like zig and zag element where it's like if people are fishing a lot, then maybe you want to be trying to spend time like building up your islands. If people are doing that, maybe there's the opportunity where you can be the one collecting the most fish. I really found the core gameplay loop very intriguing, but I also found it to be like a little bit weighed down by the weight of the systems on top of it. This is a game that has like a pretty hefty personal player board with a bunch of different things that you can upgrade to, like, create some extreme asymmetry. You can also start with asymmetric player powers that we opted not to for our first learning game. So basically, you could be like, I'm really good at sailing, so I can move very quickly, or like I'm getting a bunch of extra points when I'm doing the celebration, or I'm the great at fishing, etc. And you're building your asymmetric power to hopefully like take advantage of the soft spots in the game. So overall, very cool game. A lot going on. Certainly felt more in the kind of like weight class of an Age of Innovation, as opposed to something lighter. Not all the way there. So kind of like a medium heavy Euro game with like some solid player interaction. But kind of for where I'm at these days, it felt like a little bit too much leaning into that kind of like classic midweight Euro stuff than the interactive loop. So ultimately, I want to try Kai if I got the chance, because I think
Sure.
it'd be really fun.
I remember Mark from Board Game Barrage really hyping up Kai after he tried it for the first time. And then I think still liking Feya's Swamp, but not being as excited as he was about Kai.
I think it's in that kind of tradition of a more Eurofied, perhaps softened version of a game. And I think it's changed quite a bit, right? I don't think it's not a straight re-implementation, but it feels like they've added stuff to the core system that it is maybe a little bit more in the personal player puzzle vein.
Sure.
So that's my experience with Feya's Swamp.
Cool. Well, I got to play a game I've been really excited to play. In fact, I pre-ordered a copy of this months ago, and my pre-order from Miniature Market still hasn't come in, and I don't know why. So I was very excited that Joseph from our Discord brought Dark Pact with him. This is a new Tom Lehman deck builder, and Tom Lehman, of course, is made some of maybe like the best games ever. Like, I don't know. He made Race for the Galaxy. When you make Race for the Galaxy, you kind of like get unlimited street cred for the rest of your life. But Dark Pact is very much a Dominion style deck builder. In fact, you can really see the influence from Dominion immediately, because on your turn, you have one action and one buy, and you play cards that give you more actions or more card draw, and some of the cards are coins. So basically, just imagine you're playing Dominion. Okay, but the big difference is that there are no victory point cards. Instead, at the start of the game, in your deck, you have a Dark Pact, and this is a victory condition. And the victory conditions basically require you to break the game in order to fulfill. So, for example, my Dark Pact was that I needed to have at once like the 22 value in coins. Okay, and the coins you're getting are like one coin, two coins, right? Like it just seems impossible. Or like someone might have a card that says like, have 25 cards in your hand, right? Like crazy stuff. And you can buy more of these in the market. So you can actually have multiple of these dark packs active. But the core sort of like idea of the game is that in your deck, you have these multiplier cards. I would say you have one that says ×2 at the start of the game. And you pair that with another card, and it multiplies every number on the card. So if I have a card that's like +2 actions, +2 card draw, it's now actually 4 actions and 4 card draw. And like if I have put 2 × 2 on it, then it's 8 actions and 8 card draw, right? And so it's like a game that's kind of trying to give you the deck builder feeling that playing a digital deck builder gives you, right? It's that sort of like massive dopamine hit where like you have to break the game in order to play it, and it gives you these tools to do crazy combos. And I would say it does it really well. I think it's very cool the way that there is actually a little bit of interaction in it in the sort of like hate drafting of the dark packs that come up in the market. Or like what dark packs other people have active. So like if I know you, so like my dark pact was that I needed these like unique treasure cards, was like the one I bought that I ended up going towards. And so these are like, it's like instead of a 2 coin, it's like a special artifact that or whatever. And so I needed a certain number of these special artifacts out at once. And so other players, because they knew that's what I was going for, were incentivized to, because you can like kill cards out of the market. So to like kill those out of the market, or like if there's a dark pact that goes well with what someone else is doing, maybe I'll draft that dark pact just to keep them from winning. So very cool. And I played this with 3 players, and I think it's a game that's probably ideal for 2, just because if you might imagine, as I'm describing these giant combos you're doing, like you just have to like, it's just like you're doing stuff and it just takes a long time because when you're popping off, you're like, okay, I'm drawing this many, and then I have to discard some, and I'm going to do this, 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 which is like cool if I'm playing a video game where I'm just like popping off. If I'm playing
It's all
Balatro and
you.
it's just multiplying, right? If I'm playing Balatro and it just keeps multiplying, that's cool. But if someone is like waiting for their turn while I do that, it's a little bit less ideal. Like I really, as I was playing the game, was just like craving it to be simultaneous play.
Yeah.
Because when other people are popping off, it's not like I'm looking at my hand planning out what to do, because I'm going to be drawing a bunch of cards on my turn. Like I can't plan out my turn because I don't know what cards I'm going to draw. Right. And so there's a lot of like, am I going to draw the cards I want to draw? There's not like, while you're doing crazy pop off combos, I just have to watch it because there's not really stuff for me to be considering as that's
Right.
going on. So like, I think it would be a really fun 2-player dueling game if you just want to play like a crazy 2-player deck builder. But I think with more than that, it's definitely got some downtime problems, because in order to give me my big crazy turn, if everyone's doing those big crazy turns, all of a sudden you're adding a lot of downtime
Yeah.
to the game.
I could see it too being like, knowing how deck builders go, somebody takes like a massive crazy turn and you're sitting there like, damn, my turn's gonna be
Yeah,
like cycle my hand. It's
for
take 2
sure.
seconds and then the person after you goes off. Yeah, I mean, I really have heard about this game. I'm intrigued by it, certainly. I think the Dominion style deck building, I like that, right? To have like,
Yeah.
when you say Dominion, it's got like your card market, or no, the card
Mhm.
market
Yeah.
is,
Well, oh, yeah, so it's not a set card market, right?
oh,
So it's
okay.
a river
I
card market.
misunderstood.
However, like the cards that get trashed out of the market, there's cards that can dig those out. So like, but yeah, one
Okay.
thing we had problems with is that like we were playing like half the game before like more multiplier cards showed up in the market. So it felt
Okay.
like the game was going so slow. And Joseph was like, I swear there's a whole bunch of, there's like ×3 cards in here. And we're like, okay. And once those came up, then it's like the game opened up. And
Yeah.
it's almost like they should just give us they should give us more multiplier cards in our starting deck, since that's kind of the whole game. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
cool, but it seems like the kind of game that I think will be improved down the road with expansions. Like this almost feels like a proof of concept more than anything else. And like I think as a proof of concept, it's very strong and fun. But I could see the novelty wearing off. So hopefully my pre-order still comes in. I'm still
yeah.
waiting for it. Miniature Market, if
Cool.
you're listening, why don't you get on that?
The hook of like, when you break the game is over, is really strong, right? Like,
Right. Exactly.
for and doing it in creative ways. Yeah, I would like to try it. The only other new game I played is a game called Market Fresh. And I was interested to try this one because it is designed by Kramer and Kiesling. And I also had recently heard about it on the Shut Up and Sit Down podcast. It was in the play and win area, so I grabbed that one as well and was fortunate enough to get it played. This one is incredibly simple. It is a domino game, like Renature, one of my favorites, where you have dominoes that have like different fruits on each side. And there's like 12 different fruits in this game, so many different fruits. So those are basically, it would be like a blueberry on one side and strawberry on the other side, domino. And what you're doing in this game is you are placing dominoes into a personal player board grid. And when you place a domino, you look at what is your largest set of fruit. from the one you played or whatever. So if I place it and I'm like, okay, great, I have 3 strawberries, then I say, okay, I'm using this for 3 strawberries, and I would get, I think, like 3 points. But then the key thing is you look at this giant grid that has all the fruit at the bottom, and at the x-axis or whatever, I might be saying that wrong, the one that goes up and down, that has numbers,
That
one,
would usually
two,
it's the
seven.
Y, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
what
all good.
I think I said that. If you, when you edit this, you'll see that I
For
had
sure,
said
for
that
sure, for
right.
sure.
um so so anyway, so I find the three, and then I go strawberries, and if it's empty, I get to put my personal player color token in that grid. It's just like, the board is hilarious because it's like massive board, right? Like 12 by 7 or whatever I said, and it's just white. It's like literally just a white board, that you're going to be filling in with your player markers. If somebody else is there, and there's empty spaces below, I can like go below. I could take like two, and then you play that way until all the dominoes are gone, and then you score points just based on however many you earned over the course of the game. And then you look at the grid, and it's like, if you're at the top of the grid, you get like 2 times whatever it says. So if I got 5 strawberries and nobody beat that, then I'll get like 10 more points on top of it. And that was literally the whole game, just like extremely puzzly, right? A lot of the game is like looking at your 4 dominoes you can pick between, trying to figure out not just like what can I score the most points with right now, but like, this is important. Like, they're actually like 3D fruit baskets, so you're actually stacking them up and up and up.
No,
So if there's two that are like at the same level, then you can put one on top to continue building, and you just look top down to do your scoring. So you need to figure out not only like what can I score right now, but also like what am I okay with kind of foregoing, because it's a very small grid. So you're always basically from pretty early on in the game covering something or multiple things. Like, what am I not really going to be interested in later that I'm okay with covering next time? And then also cross referencing it with that, you know, superiority board or whatever, to figure out kind of like what are the soft spots that are still out there, which could be like, oh, I think I can take blueberries by getting the most, or like, actually, I could get this like cheeky little 2 blueberries that nobody's claimed yet, and score some more points that way. So very puzzly, super light, quick, inoffensive. I think like if you like that kind of puzzle. A game I've played that is feels like puzzly in that same way recently is like Azul Queen's Garden. This is like
okay.
lighter than that, but it gives you like a true like puzzle, like number crunching feeling puzzle, where you're just like, I need to like actually try and think ahead here. It's like how I'm going to like spatially create this sculpture of fruit.
Would you call this a cozy game?
I think so. I mean, I don't know what that I don't know what that means, Pete.
Well, people say it all the time. I think
Yeah.
I think it means like meditative and comforting, perhaps,
Yeah. I
with
mean, I
some
think if you
cuteness.
yeah, if you like to puzzle something out,
Sure.
on your own, like a lot of the game is spelled like in a very personal decision space, right? Um it it is interactive in the sense that like it matters what other people are doing, but only so far as like that is one input into the puzzle that I'm doing on my own over here. So for me, that is cozy, like a cozy way to
Yeah.
play, that I'm like sitting here and enjoying my puzzle. Um, and you're doing the same thing on your end, and we're having like a nice time together. So for me, it's cozy. I don't know if that's how everyone's using the word.
It
So
sounds
I
like something
enjoyed it. Yeah.
it sounds like something I would have a nice time playing and then feel like I probably am done with.
Yeah. I feel the same about like this one and Feya Swamp, which is like I really enjoyed both plays, but
Yeah.
they're not. I'm not. And I would play them again, if somebody brought it out, but I'm not gonna be buying them or necessarily like pushing to play again. So that was Market Fresh, the new Kramer and Kiesling joint, obviously. one thing that people probably don't know is Wolfgang Kramer is like in his 80s, like maybe mid 80s at this
Just still
point,
crushing it.
still crunching, yeah, still putting out like novel, interesting, good games. Um, yeah, so a true legend in our hobbies. So I'll always want to see what he's cooking up.
Yeah,
And you know, Kramer is not so bad himself. No,
all of these new hotness games are like industry vets that were
totally.
just, yeah, because like Tom Lehman, that dude's been around.
It's
Okay,
very decision space. Like, yeah, okay, we'll try the new Kramer and
yeah.
Lehman games.
Okay, so our next superlative is best new to me game, which is not necessarily the new hotness. In fact, none of the games that we have here are even close to the new hotness. So, like, what
Oh my
old game did you play for the first time that knocked your socks off? Um, Jake, why don't you go first on this one?
Oh, I had to go for. I just did one.
All right, that's fine. I can go. I actually have two, but
Oh,
they're forever
okay,
linked in my mind because there was like a double header.
okay.
Uh,
So a
so
cheat.
yeah, it is a cheat just because this is a back to back. So Saturday night was the night that I stayed late. And from about 10 p.m. till about 12:30 that night, I had the most like raucous gaming of the whole convention with two new to me games. So the first one was a negotiation game by Sid Saxon from 1994, and this is called I'm the Boss. So JC from our Discord brought this, and this is a game that's been on my radar. Like I've listened to podcasts where people like Kellen from Board Game Barrage or Tom Brewster or Cole Worley have talked about how this is this incredible, silly negotiation game. So I was very keen to play it. And it looks like a mass market game from the 1990s, right? We're in sort of like that zone. And it's basically a roll and move. And on your turn, you'll roll dice and move to a space. And on that space is a list of identities that can make a deal. And if you say, let's make a deal here, then you start a 2 minute timer and you've got 2 minutes to get those identities together to make a deal on how the reward will be split. And there's essentially a reward deck that escalates as you play. So as the game goes on, there's more loot to split. And the players have cards in front of them that represent the identities that can make deals. So if I land on a space that's like, yellow and purple, or yellow or purple, and green or blue, you need two, one from each of those categories to make a deal. So then the four people with those goals are like, okay, I would do it for 1,000. I'll just take 1,000. Someone else is like, well, you can, do whatever. And so you're just open negotiation for 2 minutes. However, everyone also has a handful of cards that do just like crazy bullshit. And so maybe you're blue and I slap a card down on blue that says, actually, blue is on a trip in an airplane. So now you got to make a deal with me. And so that kind of stuff is going on at the same time, or someone else is like plays a card that's like, no, actually, I'm the boss, and I get to decide when the deal is done. And people are like stealing identity cards from each other. It's just like absolutely insane. It's just a wild, loud, real-time negotiation game. And I got shut out of basically every deal. Like I made almost no money in that game. And it's like impossible to track how much money people are making because it's just like going and going and going. It's just silly and stupid and was really, really hilarious. I think that playing it with a full group late night at a convention is like the ideal circumstance for playing this game. I think it would be impossible to play this game if people don't want to be like loud and nasty. Like it was very much my kind of thing. It was hilarious, even though I made almost no deals. Uh, like it was just so
That was your first mistake.
funny. Well, on the first round, someone stole my identity card, and then I spent the entire game just trying to like weasel my way in and like grab another identity. And it's like every modern design principle of how you should make a good game had not yet been established before this game was made. Like it's just like it kind of like barely works in a way that's like exciting. Um, And then right after that, I played this old German push your luck game called Auf Teufel komm raus, which is a 2013 game by Tanja Engel and Sarah Engel. And this is one that Josh from our Discord had a print and play copy of that he had made. And it's already one of my favorite push your luck games I've ever played. Like, I basically told Paul, like, you got to see if you can get the rights to print this for GameHead because it's so stupidly good. Basically, the way this game works is you have a bunch of tokens in the middle of the board that have values on them and they're face down. And the values are in like denominations of fives. So, like, some of them are fives, some of them are tens, all the way up to where some of them are hundreds. But also among those are basically these tiles with devils on them. And so at the beginning of the round, everyone secretly bids with their money on a value. And then we reveal our bids. And the value you reveal is basically someone needs to reveal at least that much in chips. So if my bet is 50, that means I will double my money so long as anybody's like chip pulling equals at least 50. Okay. But when you're pulling chips, as soon as you hit a devil, you're out and that doesn't count. Okay. But there's a couple wrinkles to it. First of all, whoever has the highest bid, if that gets hit, their reward is doubled. So you're actually incentivized to bid really high. And whoever pulls the most chips and whoever pulls the most value in chips gets bonus points. So you're also incentivized to keep pushing your luck, even if you've already achieved the goal you were looking for. It's also got one of the best catch-up mechanisms ever because whoever is losing has made a deal with the devil. And every time someone pulls a devil chip, they have to pay you as a catch-up mechanism. But what's really neat is that you only reset the pot of chips once a certain amount of them have been taken away. So if like a bunch of devils go out and you don't reset the chips, you're like, oh, time to bet high, right? And it's just got these like stand-up moments of like risking it all and like hitting really hard. It's both a big moment if you do or don't hit a devil, basically. And it's got this funny shared incentive thing where like, okay, I'm pulling for my bid, but it might also help someone else with their bid. So if they bid slightly higher than me, I'd like to just hit my bid and then stop. You know, it was just so freaking funny. It ran a little long, I would say, for what it was, but like the way it combined gambling and push your luck was just absolutely hilarious. Like this game, you cannot find a copy of it. Like literally, they don't exist. I think.
Don't try.
Don't try. Don't try. You
Make
probably
your
are better
own.
off making your own, like Josh did. But absolutely hilarious. This is the one that like anyone who was in the ballroom while I was playing this game, like I apologize for the language you heard me use while playing because it was rough. I came in second place. Alan and I were both basically in contention to win, and I busted on that last round, and he only needed like 50 to hit. And so, anyway, hilarious. Highly recommend that you research this game. It's called Auf Teufel komm raus. Make your own copy. So hilarious.
That sounds awesome. I would love to play that one. I'm the boss. On the other hand, sounds terrible.
I don't know that I would call it a good game, but like
I actually have played it once at
really?
Geekway, but it was like 5 years ago with a bunch of people I didn't know. Like I knew like some of the people. It flopped so hard for me. I think I think some of the people in the game were maybe having a good time, but you're just like I mean like what you were saying about the identity is like rang true for me. I was like I think I was just like at one point like just not able to make any deals. I'm just like okay, this is is like flying is like in Castles of Burgundy you're always doing fun stuff. This I'm just sitting here suffering with anyway. Cool.
Right, what you got?
But mine is another older game. Mine's from 1997, designed by Klaus Tuber, the late Klaus Tuber, who of course is famous for other 90s board games like Hoity Toity. Maybe you've heard of that one. Pretty cool. And also Catan. And so it's interesting. I'm looking at this. So Lauenherz, I guess, is the follow up to Catan. Catan coming out in 1995. This one coming out in 1997. sharing some Catan DNA, but also doing a lot of things very, very different. Similarly to, the way you describe I'm the boss is like it is a relatively simple game, really quite streamlined with like a very novel action selection mechanism, but like the way things work in this game are it's just different, right? Like you don't get to use your like modern Euro heuristic understanding to like understand like the way things work in this game. You just have to actually learn afresh. I've reminded of Cole Worley talking about how a lot of our modern Euro games are just like so built on everything we know that when you play it, even like much simpler game, it's kind of like, wait, what? That does what? How does that work? So anyway, what you're doing in Low and Hertz is essentially you're trying to like claim territory on a board. So I would call it a area control game. Um, and the way you're doing that is by taking like only a few different actions. One of the things you can do is expand. So you start off the game with a couple of, so it's just a square board, and there are like these fence tiles that just like go on the intersection, or fence pieces that go on like the intersection of the tiles. So you start with like your own little region that's fenced off. Um, I guess they're walls. We'll call them walls for the rest of this mini review. So you can expand, and the way expanding works is like you basically just like amoeba take another square into your little kingdom. So you would add like three new walls to kind of like claim it into your like space. You could also build walls. And when you get to build walls, you get to build like two or three walls anywhere on the board. So not necessarily connecting to your current space. Like you could fence off entire new regions in this way that are like not controlled by anybody, or hopefully controlled by you. The way you control regions in this game is by adding more knights to the board. Knights are just another piece that goes on the board. It can go next to your other knights, or it could go next to your castles that you start with, and you never get any more of those. You start with like two castles, and they never move. They just stay there. Um, which is kind of interesting and different. It's like, okay, cool. Where's the rule about moving the knights? It's like we're like going through a book. It's like they don't move ever.
They
Okay,
don't move.
yeah, they just stand there. But the way you're doing, and that's pretty much it. And there's some like special action cards that you can get that can be very swingy and powerful. But the way you're doing anything in this game is you flip over an action card, and the action card will have three different actions depicted on it. It could be just like get money, or it could be build walls, or it could be expand, or it could be get a card, and that's it. And then everybody decides which of those actions they're going to do. So Pete, you might say, I'm going to build walls. And then Jared says, I'm going to get a card. And then I say, I'm going to get a card. And if I pick the same thing, if anybody picks the same thing, they have to do a duel, which is basically like, it's just negotiation. But it, like similar to Catan, right? Bringing in negotiation again. But it's just like kind of like a bilateral negotiation, unless more than one person picked the thing. So it'd be like, you could just exchange money for actions, and that's all you use money for in the whole game. Um, so I could be like, P, I'll buy that from you for, I'll give you $8, or I say, Pete, give me $8 and I'll let you do it because I think $8 is fair. And you're like, $8 is fair. Okay, I'll take $8 then. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay you $8, and we just have to like negotiate from there. And it's very funny. Ultimately, if you can't agree, then you just do a duel where you do a blind bid
Oh,
auction, and whoever did the most gets it, and the other person gets nothing, which feels terrible if you're like the person on the losing end, because like somebody, you're like, I'll give you $4 of the action. I'm like, no way, dude. You're like, all right, duel, and then we duel, and you just pay $6 to the bank or whatever, and I get nothing. Instead, I could have had $4. Um, and that's pretty much the whole game. Like you score points by claiming more territories. If you can like take over somebody's castle, you get a bunch of points. You get points just by claiming blank territories. Some of them have mines that will like randomly pay out, and that's the whole game. Super fun, super engaging, totally strange incentives that I did not understand. I did absolutely terrible, but walked away. Looking at Jared, who I played with, who's in my local game group. It's like, all right, one of us needs to track down a copy of this so we can play it again. So that's Lowenherz. Spelled with
Sounds
like an
awesome.
umlaut and like a Z. So also you can't really buy it, I don't think.
Yeah, here we are, recommending games that you literally cannot buy. So looking at the board, it looks really cool. Is it a game where sort of is what the walls are doing? You're kind of like defining the territories that are being competed over. Is that the situation, or
So I mean, everything would either be somebody's territory. So the way we did it, I think you can do like a more strategic setup, or you could do like the basic setup, which we did,
Mhm.
which meant everybody started with two regions of like fenced in, walled in
Uh-huh.
areas that were theirs. Everything else that wasn't in any of those is like neutral. So you could just claim it in yours if it's neutral. But eventually, you get to be brushing up against other people,
Right.
or people are coming to you. And then you can expand into somebody else's region, taking their points for
Yeah.
you. Like it's, very zero sum, but you can only do that if you have more knights in your region. So that's the
Okay.
other thing that the knights are for. Or you could like, if there's like a big empty region, and you had a knight in there, um, you could just kind of like, it could become all of yours, I guess, too. And like the stuff that got weird, where it's like we don't really understand how this is working, is like what, like kind of like you could like at one point like somebody had a weird shape thing that got like cut off, so then their large kingdom got like cut in half, and what that meant was like everything that was not in their knights area anymore just became like neutral territory again for like anybody to claim and go into, and they lost like a massive heap of points all in once. So yeah, I don't know,
Cool.
it's very cool. I mean, a negotiation game for me is like, I'm realizing, I'm definitely growing on it as a mechanism, and I like it in these instances where it's like very like okay, we can do negotiation under these circumstances, right?
Sure.
There's like strong kind of
Clear
gates
incentives.
around what, not like I'm the boss. We're just like, all right, we're just like, this is, everything is just all crazy free for all. But like, okay, me and JC, and we're gonna like work this out. And then it also has like a press release valve, so like anybody can at any point just be like, all right, I'm tired of this, let's just duel,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciated.
That sounds awesome. I would love to play that.
Yeah, I think you would love it. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
play it. We'll just grab a
absolutely.
copy
Well,
from the Barnes
once
and
you
Noble.
yeah, right, yeah. We'll just time travel back to 1997 and go to Germany. Cool. All right. So our next superlative is your favorite like play of like an old favorite, right? So this would be
Yeah.
sort of like a game that you just generally love playing that you had a good play of, or a game that you were excited to be able to get back to the table, something like that. Um, the one I picked for this is I played John Company, which at this point I'm kind of averaging like one play of John Company a year. And if this is my one play of John Company for this year, I'm satisfied. I'm happy. The downside to playing it once a year is I basically have to refresh myself on all the rules once a year because I'm always teaching it to somebody, including kind of reteaching it to myself. John Company, of course, is a Whirly Gig game designed by Cole Whirly. This is the second edition of the game. And it is kind of, I've described it as kind of like a party game for heavy gamers, or sort of like a heavy push your luck negotiation game. It's a historical game about the British East India Company in India, where essentially we are all rich families of upper class British jerks who have our family members involved in the British East India Company. And we are holding positions in the company that we are trying to use to maximize our own pockets, because the ultimate goal is actually for your family members to retire to fancy estates from the company and to be able to pay the upkeep on those fancy estates that your pensioners have retired into. So it's kind of like layered with both historical detail and social commentary. But the reason that this play was so great is just the reason that John Company is also just partially so great is that it's this very engaging kind of structured negotiation that has this set procedure as you like go through the positions in the company that all do kind of like their own things, and it is truly a semi-cooperative game to where if the company fails or succeeds, that's affecting all of us. And it's kind of like we're all together on the same team, taking the ship to its right course until it looks like the company is tanking. And then we're like, okay, better watch out for my back. So like it like switches between friendly and unfriendly pretty quickly. Um, I was the chairman of the company for the entire game, which means essentially that I was in charge of allocating funds to everybody else. And this is a game that's often done with a rolling teach where you can kind of like teach as you play. And then by the end of the first round of the game, everybody knows how everything works. And so that's how I did it. And as I teach the game, and usually when I teach the game, I make myself the chairman just because knowing how much money to give every office is pretty complicated. And so I always kind of like am a company man when I play the game because it's like, well, I don't want to just like start screwing people if I'm teaching the game. And so the company was doing really well. Everybody was kind of crushing it, and we were all retiring people and felt pretty good. But at about the halfway point of the game, basically the core mechanic of the game is anytime you're trying to do something in the company, it's got the same mechanism, which is that you pay money to roll dice. It's like every dollar you spend is a die. And you're rolling a big fistful of dice. And if any of your dice show a one or a two, you succeed. If any of your dice show a three or a four, nothing happens. And if your lowest dice, so this you're only checking your lowest dice. If your lowest die is a one or two, success. If your lowest die is a three or four, nothing happens, which is bad because usually you need something to happen.
Yeah.
And if your lowest roll is a five or a six, it's a catastrophic failure and you immediately get fired from the company. And what's funny about this game is it gives you a little table on your player board of the odds of success with each number of dice you roll. So you know that if you roll 4 dice, you got like an 87% chance of success. So it actually tells you how risky you're being, which actually psychologically gives you this false level of confidence because you're like, well, 87% chance, like that means we're going to do it. Of course, your brain is not telling you that like things that happen 13% of the time still happen, right? Like it doesn't mean it's impossible. And so about halfway through the game, we just started failing like rolls with 4 or 5 dice. And it was like, uh-oh. And the company just starts tanking. And what was really cool about this play is the people who did the best were people who took unique strategic. It's a game where it can be hard to see through the procedures and everything how to make yourself in a powerful position. And 2 players did that, and they were the ones who did the best in the game. And that was very cool to see that new players, or at least people who were trying to refresh on the game, found sort of an incentive structure that made them successful. Like Jared started buying these luxuries, and the luxuries basically are worth points but have nothing to do with the company. It's just like, I've got a lot of money. And then Alan was buying a bunch of boats, which boats were good because they gave you regular income, but also they gave you votes in parliament. And so he was at the end able to become the prime minister of the parliament, which gave him some extra stuff and made him adjust some things. It's just such a cool, evocative game. It was a really fun play. I had a great time, even though I failed. I actually think I lost basically every game at Geekway. So that like doesn't really matter. But it was just a treat to get to play this game that I wish I could play more often. And so, yeah, it was great to get John Company back to the table. That was
Yeah.
my favorite sort of like getting an old game to the table, an old favorite.
Love it. Yeah. That was the game I was thinking of when it's like it's just funny to be on the periphery of a game of John Company just because of like, it's like the nouns and the verbs. Like the way the game forces you to talk like in the parlance of like business people running this insane company into the ground. It's just funny. It's just funny to like listen to. Like it's like you're role playing,
Yeah,
but
it
you're
I think you kind
trying
of
to
need
play
to
a game.
lean into the role playing. It's kind of like a game where if you win, it's probably because something unexpected happened and you just happen to be on the right end of it. It's not like whoever like solves it wins. You
Yeah.
know, it's not like a best player wins kind of game. There's ways you can learn to be good at it. That's just not usually how the games go when I play it.
Yeah, I overheard somebody talking about that play, and we're like, was it? Did you feel like it was a game or like an experience? And they're like, that was experience, but I think if I played it again, it would be more of like a game too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it sounds cool, and I was watching you just like reeling back, like physically up away from the table, walking into the aisle, just like I can't. So that must have been one of those really bad rolls.
So many really bad rolls. You became desensitized to it eventually, but hilarious. What was
Awesome.
your good like refresher play?
Yeah, so this year I did not put Broom Service on my top 10 because it sadly was not one that I'd played over the years. So I was very excited to get the opportunity to play it again at Geekway. Play with a full player count of 5 players. And I think it was everybody else was new to the game. So that was fun. Like I got to teach 4 people Broom Service. One thing that was really funny that happened was that when I opened the box, like you crucially in Broom Service, you have 2 witch pawns that are moving around the board, doing this like pick up and deliver kind of like donkey space poker style action selection game. But when I opened the box, I was missing exactly 1 witch of every single player color. And I was like, how could this happen that I had lost these pieces? And it eventually came to me that I had used them as a prototype in something else. I had like taken them out of the box. Um, but I couldn't for life of me think where. And immediately after this game, I was teaching people to call from my bag, and I opened that up, and like there's like all
The
this
witches were
random
in there.
prototype crap, including the witches. So that was funny. Um, but anyway, we did a whole episode on Broom Service. We also talked about it very recently on the top 10 because Brendan had more wisdom than I and just put it on there anyway for him. It's an excellent Alexander Pfister game, kind of like perfect midweight game, plays in like 90 minutes or whatever, and it has like the best mechanism ever, one of them in my opinion, which is that whenever you basically draft 4 of 10 actions each round of the game, and then whenever you play an action, it's almost like a trick taking game where like I'll lead with this action and I have to declare if I'm brave or cowardly, and then it goes around the table, and if anybody else has that exact same card, they have to play it when it gets to them, and they get to choose brave or cowardly. If you pick cowardly, you do like a worse version of that action and right away. If you choose brave, you have to wait until it goes all the way around the table, because if a second person chooses brave, they will usurp you and take the action and you get nothing. Um, it's just a great game. We played just the base rules with like I think some there was like one thing I added in, but like a very 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 minor tweak, and everybody just loved it. Man, we had such a good time. Just instantly reminding me why this is such a beloved game. It so desperately needs a reprint. People were telling me like this is actually like out of print, like really hard to get now. Like, well, that is a shame, because this is just an incredible game that I feel like has a ton of appeal for all kinds of different gamers. Like a very kind of cozy theme, very cutthroat gameplay mechanism, but like instantly and like viscerally, players learn it and then get into it right away, right? Because you're like kind of guesstimating. That's the best you could do, what other people might have done based on what they did. And this just creates so many hilarious moments of like being like, I'm so sure that there's no way this player has this card because of their position. It would not benefit them in any way to have taken it. So I'm going to pick Brave. And of course, they slam Brave immediately afterwards. Or, the inverse where you're like, okay, definitely somebody else has, of the 5 people picked this. So I'll just go cowardly, and it goes all the way around the table. You're the only person that picked that card. Now you're forced to lead again. It's like no matter, it's like what you were describing before with the push your luck game, where it's like it's hilarious if somebody does have the card.
Yeah.
It's hilarious if they don't have the card. No matter what, like everybody's kind of winning and kind of enjoying the experience of this game. So, I think it won 4 new fans, and for me was, reinvigorating my own love for the game. So that was Broom Service.
Talk about like a game where the vocabulary of the game enhances the play experience. Like the fact that it's called Brave and Cowardly, I think actually enhances the gameplay. Like I still remember the feeling of around the table, someone going, "I'm the brave hill witch," and the next person going, "No, I'm the brave hill witch." Right? Like it's just hilarious.
Definitely.
All right. Our last superlative here is the favorite overall play of the con, right? The number one play, maybe the play that meant the most to you, or one that like stuck with you, or one that just felt amazing. My number one play was not necessarily the most fun play that I had, but it's actually one that I have continued to think about and probably will continue to remember for a long time. And that was for the first time in 5-ish years, 4 or 5 years, I got to play Oath. And what was special is I got to play this a couple of days after recording that interview with Cole Worley, where he talked a lot about Oath. And this is a game I really love. It's kind of like this pseudo campaign game, where essentially the core hook of the game is that one player is the ruler and all the other players are exiles. The exiles can become citizens, which sort of allies them with the chancellor. But the special thing is whoever wins the game is the chancellor for the next game. So it's a game where the way the game ends dictates how the next game is set up. And essentially, you've got this like map where you're playing down cards that represent the locations on a map. It's actually a pretty heavy action point system in terms of a turn. Like your turns are long in this game. And you've got a certain number of action points that you kind of need to like figure out the logistics of exactly what to do. But what makes the game so special is that essentially the chancellor has an oath that they're holding, which is the victory condition for the game. In the game we played, it was whoever was holding the banner of the darkest secret would be the winner of the game. And so at the start of the game, that's everybody's goal. Okay. But if you're an exile, you can find new cards in the deck that are visions, which creates a new victory condition for you. Okay. And if you reveal a vision and at the start of your turn, you're satisfying that vision, you actually win the game. So it's like a whole game of like who's about to win. But if you're a chancellor, if you're a citizen, which I became a citizen, then if the chancellor wins, but I am satisfying my victory condition, then I actually win. Right. So that's kind of the game. And what's special is this is a game where you're encouraged to kind of like tell the story of your game. And member of our Discord, Dave, who's a local guy here in St. Louis, he had printed out a PNP copy of all of the new expansion that is about to come out. And he did something really cool with this copy of the game, which is that for every player color, because it's a game that is kind of like a campaign, but it's explicitly designed so that anybody can hop in and play. Like it's not a campaign game that tells a story. So like anybody can just jump in. It's just you're jumping into a game where history has happened. And like the board is in a weird state. And you might not actually know why the board is in a weird state. And the story of the game is essentially that every game is a generation. So I'm like the son of whoever played my player color last time. And what Dave did that was genius is he had a little notebook for every player color. And you were encouraged as you were playing to write the story of your family at that time. So when I sat down at my seat, I was given a notebook that had like my family history in it. And it was like pages and pages. And so it was like too much actually for me to read before we got started. So I just like read the last couple of things and it was like, okay, the guy who's the chancellor burned down your homeland. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I know that now, right? So like I'm like given a grudge to hold at the start of the game, right? Which is like very funny. And it's a game with a lot of downtime, but because we were each given our own notebook during that downtime, we were just like writing, right? We were, it gave you something to do during the long downtime. And when something like weird happened, like we got a rule wrong that I did something that I had to give back something I'd stolen. And I like wrote the story about how like there was like a legal dispute and like I got like out lawyered, right? And so, it's like you just like can like make up sort of the meaning. And it was such a rich game. And what's funny is Dave said that when he played this in the past, he had a Google Doc that people could update if they wanted to, and like no one really did. But as soon as he gave everybody a physical media to change, right, to write in, people wouldn't stop writing. That there's something special about like, no, here's a notebook with a story that you can add to this sort of like really special kind of thing. And so I didn't win, but like I was an exile and then I became a citizen and then I re-exiled myself and found a vision. It's like so rich and cool. It's probably too heavy for its own good and too complicated for its own good, but like totally worth it. I cannot wait for the expansion to show up so I have a reason to start a new campaign with my group. I'll be thinking about this play of Oath for a long time. I said in the quintessential Pete and quintessential Paul episode that I think Oath is the most quintessentially Pete coded game that exists. And this play reaffirmed that for me. So thank you, Dave, for bringing Oath and happening to have an empty seat at a time when I was looking. This was my last play of the convention, and it like left me just buzzing. So that's Cole Worley's
Awesome.
Oath.
I love the notebook idea, and it's like it takes something like I would, if somebody's like on their phone doing like a Google document, it'd be like, don't do that.
Yeah,
Come on,
right.
we're like playing a game. But like with the notebook, it's like, yeah, that's actually like being good for the Magic Circle, and also you're doing it live, right? Which is going to change the content then if you were like, what happened in that game, afterwards or like that evening or the next day or whatever. So yeah, that's cool. And yeah, the game having a history that players don't know is fascinating. Though I don't think Oath is probably for me. The the game that was my favorite play is definitely a game that is for me. I got to play
Your number one
T-Call.
game. Yeah.
And okay, what I said on our top 10 episode is that T-Call is not a game for everybody. That is not me trying to be like, you have to be really smart like me to appreciate
Right.
this for what it is. That's me being like genuine. Like there are just a lot of folks that are not going to vibe with if you talk about a big action point game, the 10 action points that you get on every turn in the game. And that's totally fine. But that also means that like, when somebody approaches me and say, hey, like I'd like to play T call with you, I feel a little bit nervous of like, is this actually gonna go well? Like, I don't want my, a game that I love so much to flop. And I have had that experience. I think that the first time I played before it became my favorite game was at Geekway, basically learning out the rules. And the game took like a really long time and it wasn't that fun for anybody. It was fun enough that I wanted to play it again, but not to play the con. I taught this game, played at Geekway with some folks. I think we had like a good time, or not at Geekway, at a Gamers Ranch this year. And I think we had a good time playing it. But similarly, like, I could tell like some people's like just their brains weren't like vibing with that, wanting something a little snappy or whatever. So I had a lot of, kind of nervousness about teaching this game to three new players, or I think two new players, one person had played online or whatever. But we had an awesome time, and I did a couple things I think to help. Like I basically said as I was setting up the game and teaching it, like we just have to all agree to not be, to be active in wording off like analysis paralysis. Like we can help each other like see what is possible in real time as like part of our magic circle. I've played this game a ton, so like I'm very happy if you default by just like beating up on me. That might be a wise thing to do anyway, because I've just played this game so much. And I'm gonna just like hold people accountable. And we did a great job of that, and ultimately got it in under a couple of hours. I think maybe closer to 90 minutes of actual game time, under 2 hours for the teach, play and pack up. Um, and it was fantastic. I think everybody really liked it. Just it, unlike Oath, right? There's no verbiage here, but just the play itself is like telling a story. I end up getting myself like well positioned in the center of the board. I put a tent down, which means I can start just loading up my my workers, my area majority pieces in the middle. Somebody else had a tent right next to me, and we were just like instantly in conflict with each other and kind of got into a nuclear arms race over the 10-point tile, the most valuable tile in the game. We built it up collectively and then just fought over it the whole time. In a absolutely classic case of mutually assured destruction, where we just dedicate all our resources, but we were pot committed. And people really took me up on my offer to take me down. I was like, all right, actually, you guys could chill out a little bit. But right as I was feeling like, okay, this sucks, like I'm so used to playing online with like this auction advanced variant, but we just played the base game, which was wise, where you're just drawing tiles off the top. And I kind of had forgotten like how much like fun, of just like the random chance of that, where like somebody kind of got out to an early lead and then just drew blanks for the rest of the game, and then they were screwed. Where I kept, even though everyone was trying to kill me so much, I was just drawing like the perfect tile every single
High
turn.
skill, high luck game, right?
Yeah, and I was like, and I really felt like going to the final scoring, like, you know what, you guys tried to kill me, but through no fault of my own, I'm going to win this thing. And then an amazing thing happened, which is that the fourth player kind of came out of nowhere, to the surprise of everyone at the table, especially themselves, took down the victory in their first time playing. And I think, um, a joy to experience my favorite game anytime. It's not an easy one to get to the table, to teach it to new players, to have everybody like it so much, and kind of have create such a dynamic play at the table. I had a hard time deciding. So there were so many great plays, but ultimately it had to be this as my overall favorite play.
There's something cool about showing people your favorite game and it hitting for them, right?
Oh yeah.
Because you feel like when you put your name on like this is my favorite game, that you've got like part of your identity wrapped up in that, right?
Well, it's just like anytime, like if it's a game or like a song, it's like, hey,
A
I
movie.
really
Yeah.
like this song. Let's, and then like you're listening it together. You're just like, I feel nervous now,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it definitely, it's just that being like, this is my favorite game, and being like, part of the podcast that brought all these people together. I have maybe feeling extra pressure. So for it to go over so well, was a joy and a relief, and a memorable play for sure.
Hell yeah. We're kind of like, running at length at this point, but I wanted to talk about a couple other just like non superlative. Just I want to quick hit a couple of other things I played. I played a ton of trick taking games. I basically used that to fill in the gaps anytime there was just a couple people not playing a game. I played a bunch of them. I'll say my favorite plays of trick taking games. I played the game Trick Takers for the first time in a couple of years, which is this like crazy asymmetric power trick taking game that it was just great. It was awesome. I hadn't played it in a couple of years. It is in my top 10 of trick taking games, but I hadn't played it in like 2 years. Amazing. Love it. Want to immediately play it again. I also played a couple hands of Skull Queen, which is a Stefan Dora trick taking game that I think is just brilliant. It has no relation to Skull King. They're just absolutely stealing the branding for that, and it's like better than Skull King. There's no relation. But it's this really cool game where you're basically bidding on how often you're going to be highest and lowest in each suit in the hand. It's really weird, but like super, super recommend if you can. It's not available in America, but I think you can get it on like European Amazon, you know. And then the last one is a new to me trick taking game. Um, this is from Alex and Cardner Babakaitis. Cardner actually sent me this copy of the game. It's called Daytime Minutes, and it's this game that is themed off of cell phone plans in like the early 2000s, and the both visual theming and actual gameplay theming of the game are spot on, because essentially every third trick is a nighttime trick, and talking is free on nights and weekends. So like points don't happen on the night. And so essentially what you're trying to do is not capture the most or fewest points in tricks is basically the goal of the game for better. It's got this kind of funny thing where there can be up to 2 suits in each trick. So it's like must follow one of the 2 suits. And so it could be that everyone follows suit, or someone plays one suit and then someone plays another, and then you can choose either of those suits to follow. And so essentially both suits will have a winner. And so it's a really kind of like unique trick taking mechanism, but it's really carried by this like spot on like nostalgic theme. Uh, so definitely cool. Check that one out from Odd Candy Games. And then the other big notable play was I got to play Indonesia, which is in my top 5. But I played Josh again, who made the homebrew off Teufel Komm Raus, also made Jumbonesia, which was an Indonesia vinyl mat that took up an entire table, and all the player pieces were Legos. Like we had boats that were Legos, and it was just nuts. It was a great play of Indonesia, but just like playing on the table, like a whole table's worth of Indonesia was just like a special convention experience.
Amazing. That was for me like the one play where I was like, you know what, I could be down to play Indonesia again. And then I saw you guys playing that and like not being in that play. I was like, damn, I wish I was part of this. That looks so fun. Yeah, that's the way to do it if you're gonna play Indonesia at the table. Like, come on.
I mean, it's a game with a lot of little bits on little territories, and the luxury of being able to like clearly see where everything is was actually incredible.
I think I made that joke. I was like, "You're not allowed to do this." When I walked
Yeah.
up. Okay, I will also just shout out some excellent plays. It's become a tradition at Geekway of playing Guards of Atlantis 2, so I got that in again. So, like, if you want to play like a 6-player or 8-player game for a con that's going to play in like 90 minutes or less or whatever, it's just awesome, so fun. Every time I play it, I just am more and more impressed, and I think just more and more able to like vibe with the design goals in a way that my first play I was kind of like, some of this stuff feels a little loosey goosey for me, but now I just kind of get it, what the designer's going for. So good. I got to play El Grande with the King and Intrigue expansion. I think that's just my preferred way of playing the game now, which is saying a lot because, most of the time I've been loving El Grande. It was the base rule set. If you have this available, the biggest difference, I find some people say adds to the game. I find it even, if anything, like makes it more streamlined to play. But you just get right into the middle of things from the very first turn. There's like no setting up the board. It's like just haymakers from turn one, which you don't get in base El Grande. So incredible. Um, then just two other things really quickly. I got to play disc golf with William and Joseph, which was amazing. Like it was so fun to be able to kind of like, we connected about this on the Discord to actually play together, show them a course that I've really enjoyed in the past in kind of near our hometown, and we had a great time. Last for me is this game called Big Shot, which I wanted to shout out because it was my second time playing it. This is a 2001 design that by Alex Randolph that's been reissued and kind of like given a fresh coat of paint by Plate Games. And I want to shout this out because like Big Shot is this incredible auction game. I'm absolutely loving it. We played it this time with the hidden money variant, which improved everything like tenfold in my opinion. I loved it the first time, and I think it's twice as good this way. And then also just want to give some love to Plate. I played another one of these Plate games too. The way it works is like the box like unfolds and becomes the board. It just works great. I think I just love everything that this company's doing right now with these kind of like small box games, but like big experiences. Kind of like matching that with the production of like this small box that unfolds into like a normal size board or maybe a little smaller. Very cool, very good game. So yeah, wanted to talk a little bit about that on the show too.
I also just want to give one more shout out to listener and Discord member Bart DeJong. We got to play his game La Oaf, which is this kind of like filler party semi-cooperative game about slacking off at work. And we played this with a full player count. It's pretty goofy. It's one that I probably didn't do the best job of teaching because the incentives are like weird and unintuitive, but people kind of got it eventually. Jake and I did the best job of slacking, which is normally good, except that like the cards that happened to be successes were just like continually juicing up people who actually tried, which meant that even though, in my opinion, we did the best, we did not end up winning. I recommend looking into this one. It's basically a game where everyone's got a hand of cards of the same values, and your goal is to essentially not use your best cards. However, there's a chance that if everyone is greedy, that the boss will just be mad, and then anybody who slacked off just automatically loses. And so that's kind of the game. It's very cool. It's a really kind of like unique experience in a small package.
Yeah, I had a great time learning it, playing it as well, and yeah, having seen Bart like working on it and the game coming out and receiving acclaim, it was a really exciting moment to finally get the opportunity to play it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up.
All right, so that about does it for us. If you went to Geekway to the West, you'd love to, we had this Geekway to the West thread already that we were just gushing
Fire it
about
back up,
everything.
baby.
Let's get it back. Let's go again. But also, if you played any of these games and want to talk about them, we'd love to hear from you in our growing and thriving Discord. So hop on in. We'll have a channel for this episode. Thanks again, as always, to Himbre for letting us use their song Reach Out as our intro and outro song. And we'll get you all next time.
Bye, y'all.